Oh, this is weird. The movie's going on, but there's no dialogue. I can see their mouths moving, but they're not talking. Is this one of those dang nabbit silent films? Oh, wait, a title card popped up. Huh. The following podcast contains spoilers for The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. You have been warned.
Insert title card. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another episode of KFR News Radio. Insert next title card. I'm your host, Glenjamin Button. Insert next title card. Along with your host, Mikhail Magusto.
Insert next title card.
That's just how we're doing the whole
Hi,
thing.
Glenn. It's hard to have a silent podcast.
Yep.
It's literally impossible to have a silent podcast.
It's quite impossible.
It's kind of the whole point of a podcast is for it to not be silent.
Mm-hmm.
But we watched a silent film this week, so we had to do something.
And here we are.
The bit is done. Let's get past this. And Glenn, tell me about what movies you've seen in the past week. Don't forget, we recorded the last one on the 5th, so anything after the 6th is what you should be talking about.
Now I have no idea what I should be talking about, to be honest with you.
Well, I know for a fact that on Saturday, the 6th, we watched The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Or was that Sunday?
What's funny? I never even rated that, of course.
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, so the Friday was the 4th. So anything after the 4th is what you should be talking about. And I know we watched The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It on the 6th. This thing is off the rails already.
Yes, so to start off, I watched The Haunting, which came out in 1999. It's got
Liam Neeson's and Owen Wilson?
Yes. I mean, wow. Shall I say. This is an adaptation from the book, Haunting on Hill House. Also, what was also adapted from it as well.
Yes.
Yes. The Haunting of Hill House show from Netflix. But this was apparently a lot more adapted, from the book, actually, instead of what we got on Netflix. The first half, I actually was kind of enjoying it, and then it kind of got off the rails. Special effects kind of started happening, then I was just like, I'm checking out. This is crazy. But then I heard Owen Wilson say "wow" at least like 8 times.
Wow.
So I was like, especially right before he got, decapitated. He was like,
wow.
I was like,
what year did that come out?
99.
Yeah, I remember when I was, does it say what month it came out?
I'm just on the letterboxed one.
Okay, because I remember that when that came out, I was all hyped about it, out in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
It came out July 23rd, 1999. I was probably visiting my family in California because this is where my memory's at. Me being 9 years old at the time, almost 10, I was like, oh, I want to see that, but no one wanted to take me to see it, and so I didn't see it until much later. But I probably would have enjoyed it more when I was 9.
Absolutely.
Than I did when I finally did watch it.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, it was kooky. It was definitely kooky. First half was pretty good for the most part, but it definitely was just like, okay, why am I watching this? So far, all the movies that I watched this last week are kind of all over the place, because after that, I watched At Eternity's Gate, which is about Vincent van Gogh, the painter, and how kooky he also was.
Yeah.
But also later recognized down the path that he was just a misunderstood painter, and he definitely was born in the wrong time.
Yeah. So that movie got Willem Dafoe Oscar nomination. What did you think of it?
I actually loved it. I thought it was great. It was very beautiful.
It was. I went into Philly to watch it when it came out in theaters. I saw that. I feel like it was The Killing of the Sacred Deer. Or maybe it was The Favorite, whichever Yorgos Lanthimos movie came out that year is the one that I watched with Eternity's Gate. And then I saw a third movie. I think it was Borders or whatever. But yeah, I just remember just the beauty of that movie. The only thing that bothered me, we like to sit close, is that the shaky cam
Yeah, there's a lot of shaky cam and Dutch angles and stuff like that. And
had I sit back further, I probably would have not been as affected by that. But it really threw me off when I was watching it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been meaning to watch this for a little bit, obviously, because Willem Dafoe is fantastic, but also because I get told a lot, like, hey, you know who you look like? And I'm like, you mean that one guy from Modern Family? They're like, no, Vincent Van Gogh. And I'm like,
oh, yeah?
What was that? Because he doesn't have an ear. And so I wanted to give it a watch, because I don't really know a couple that many of his arts besides, the really
Starry
big ones.
Night, the one that's in the Philadelphia Art Museum, which is like the sunflower in the pot and stuff. Mm-hmm. There's a few in Philly, I think. I don't know exactly which ones. Starry Night is definitely not in Philly.
Yeah.
But one of his lives there, unless it's being loaned to another art museum.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, regardless, I thought it was great. I thought it was a beautiful film, and really good to know more of his little backstory and how because he wasn't even that old or anything, and he just kind of went crazy. He was just born directly in the wrong time.
Yeah,
because he could have been treated for any of the mentally illness that he had, mental illness that he had, or anything like that. But
another great film about him is Loving Vincent.
Yeah, that's another one that I want to watch.
Animated film, animated completely in oil paintings.
Oh, that's cool.
It's beautiful. They had 28 artists do over 1,000, obviously, paintings. They used a bunch of canvases to paint over. Each frame was not its own individual framed painting. They would paint over it until they had the final frame. But each shot was its own canvas, essentially. And just seeing the textures that they have in that film is beautiful.
That's pretty crazy.
Anyway, that's all I got to say about Loving Vincent. It's a great film.
Of course, we watched Conjuring somewhere in there as well. There's a whole video on that one. But the last one that I watched was Bo Burnham's Inside Netflix special. And dear God, we'll talk about it a little bit because I know you watched it too as well, right?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, so let's. What did you watch, my baby dear?
Yeah, I watched. Did I talk about Ringu? Yeah, I did talk about Ringu last year. So the first movie I watched for this week, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. You and I had a little date to go see it and made a video about it. You can check out that video on our YouTube. Third in the Conjuring series. Not the Conjuring universe, but the Conjuring series.
With my grandparents.
With your grandparents that are definitely not your grandparents. Then I watched a true crime documentary called Tabloid, which is about this woman who falls in love with a Mormon man. And when that man is on, he's 18, 19 years old.
Did you just say a Mormon?
Mormon man.
Okay.
I might have said Mormon, but he, so when he was 18 or 19 and went on his mission, as all Mormons do, I believe it's only Mormon men, but I could be incorrect about that. She didn't know that that's where he went, hired a private detective to find out where he was, and found him, and then kidnapped him. And she says she didn't rape him because she said you can't rape men. So I thought that was pretty problematic because you absolutely can rape men.
Wow.
what their dicks are saying does not matter.
I mean, never did, apparently.
Never did. It never did. Never will. But yeah, so she's like, I didn't rape him. It's if he's saying no, but he still has an erection, that's rape, lady.
That's just science. What are you talking about?
But yeah, it's told from her perspective. She fled England before she was able to stand trial, and they didn't bother extraditing her. So she never saw prison time other than, right after being arrested for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, she is a horrible person. Had a rough life afterwards. Not gonna say she deserved it, but she deserved it. Yeah. So that's Tabloid. It is a sloppy mess of a movie, of a documentary. The documentary itself's not that great. The story's interesting, but the documentary's not that great. So I can't really recommend it. Yeah. Then I saw In the Heights, the musical based on Lin-Manuel Miranda's Broadway musical. Not for me. We already saw it because you were at the theater when I was watching this.
I was waiting for you to crawl out of there.
Yeah, it is okay. It's not my cup of tea. I'm sure if you like, Hamilton or whatever, you'll like it. I don't really care for Hamilton. It's not the style of music that I like. But and overall, like, it's directed by John M. Chu, who did Crazy Rich Asians. It is shot in a very boring way. There are a few really cool sequences in it, but for the most part, it's just like people singing while walking down the street, and it gets old real quick. So yeah, it's other people will probably love it, but I didn't care for it. Then I watched Bo Burnham Inside.
Oh, this sounds familiar.
Yes. I put it perfectly in my little review on Letterboxd, so I'll just read that. It's a series of seemingly unrelated songs masterfully woven into a tapestry that perfectly showcases the mental decline of many of us at some point during this pandemic, the work of a true artist. And that is what I had to say about it.
Yeah, it really was something else.
Yeah, it was brilliant, honestly.
Yeah,
I have nothing bad to say about it. Borderline perfection. But yeah, Bo Burnham, a lot of people probably had problems with him in the past, and he addressed those problems because he was problematic at some point, and you could see that he's really grown as a person. And that's kind of what the whole thing was him growing as a person while also trying to deal with the mental aspect of being stuck inside for so long. But yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I think we both did. It is something fantastic.
Yes. Then I watched The Queen, the 2006 film with Helen Mirren playing Queen Elizabeth II. She won the Oscar for that. It is about Tony Blair and the Queen kind of directing what happens after Princess Diana died. And the Queen, because a lot of royal traditions were broken after she died, and it's kind of like the conflict of them trying to stick with royal traditions, and but the public not giving a shit about that because the public loved Princess Diana. So yeah, it's if you like British political dramas, you will love it. I thought it was decent, well acted, kept me interested long enough. So there's that.
All right.
Then I watched The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which we'll get to in just a minute. And I literally today, about 3 hours ago, watched Dream Horse with Toni Collette. It's based on a Welsh village that all chipped in to buy a racehorse, and it's kind of that whole triumphant journey of bringing fame to their little village. How'd
it go?
It's a feel-good movie. It's not anything that's going to wow the pants off you, but it's a feel-good movie. It's a feel-good movie.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched part of this in the theaters when I was working. I'm just like, I'm okay with not that it seemed bad or anything. I was just, I got the tone. I got what it was about. It wasn't really. If
there's one day where it's on a streaming service and you're like, oh, I'll check it out, you'll enjoy it. But I don't think you'll want, there's not a lot of rewatch value unless you love horses, probably. But yeah, it's a fine movie. It's nothing amazing, though.
All right.
But that's all I watched this week. Let's jump into some news. I know you don't have any news. I only have two quick bits of news. The two best shows ever on television are coming back, and they are... Can you take a guess at what those two shows are, Glenn?
Oh, well, of course. No.
Well, it's not The Office. It's not Breaking Bad. Those shows are nothing in comparison to these two shows. The first one is I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson. Obviously, that is the greatest show ever created. And it deserves all the praise.
I will do exactly what you wanted me to do last time and watch it immediately.
Yes, you better watch it immediately because it's fucking hilarious. If you haven't watched I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson, do. If while watching it you're like, this is really weird, that's the point. It is like Tim and Eric, awesome show, great job, but with not disturbing comedy. It's just really funny.
Yeah, they also the episodes go very fast too.
Yeah,
so
they're only 15-minute episodes. So
it's not like they're going to hold on to you you're not going to be stuck there or anything. So they're fun little moments for sure.
And you'll be quoting them for years afterwards, like me and my friends do.
Eternities.
Yes. So that season 2 premieres Tuesday, July 6th. Really excited about that, especially because they started shooting right before the pandemic happened and then had to shut down because of the pandemic. So I'm glad that they were able to finish. I think you should leave season 2 Tuesday, July 6th. Then What We Do in the Shadows is also coming back with season 3 on Thursday, September 2nd. That is a more easily digestible show for the masses. It's just a really funny vampire documentary type style thing based on the movie What We Do in the Shadows. And it's hilarious and comes back September 2nd. So those are the 2 shows I want to talk about. They're the greatest shows ever created. Yep. So,
I didn't have any news. I mean, there was some stuff there, but it all goes over the whole Marvel DC stuff. So it kind of, that's not really new news at this point.
It's really not. So let's get into what Streaming Roulette gave us, which is The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Hypnotist Dr. Caligari uses a somnambulist.
Close enough.
What was it?
Somnambulist.
Somnambulist.
Yeah, it's a weird word.
Cesare to commit murders.
Oh. It is directed by Robert Vienna, written by Carl Mayer and Hans Janowitz. It is starring Werner Krauss, Conrad Veidt, Friedrich Fayer, and Lil DeGover, or DeGover. And I like this name, Hans Heinrich von Twardowski. That's a fun name.
Yes, that guy gets laid.
Look at that name, Hans Heinrich.
In a casket now.
But this is a silent film from 1920, German Expressionist. For those of you who don't know, German Expressionism is what highly influenced Tim Burton, and it's very clear when you watch old German Expressionist films that's where Tim Burton got his style from. And this, 1920 silent film, one of the highly regarded as one of the greatest horror films ever made. Not just silent horror films, just horror films in general. Obviously, there's a little bit of a handicap there with it being silent for modern audiences because we don't get scared as easily, but
speak for yourself.
Yeah, let's get in. So this is legitimately, and I said this last week when we found out that this is what we were watching, legitimately one of my top 100 movies of all time. I love this movie. So I'm going to ask Glenn a lot of questions. Glenn.
Yes.
What did you think of The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari?
So I definitely wasn't expecting to be put on the spot so fast.
I apologize.
I enjoyed the movie. I think for its time specifically, that it kind of it obviously exceeded most expectations as far as plot, visuals, all that, because set design, it's all twisty turny and really set detrimental pattern for the rest of film. But the plot, I mean, the plot twist as far as that go. We'll get into that in a little bit because I don't want to spoil it right away.
Yeah.
I guess spoilers. It's probably like fucking 100 years later. But a plot twist, like it's a huge plot twist. Like nothing's really what it kind of turns out to be.
Yeah.
Which
especially for that time.
Again, for that time is like huge.
Yeah.
And I mean, like the only setbacks is like for me. This is the point to where last time we did Roman Holiday, obviously, like I have kind of a line on where I cross with old movies, like with silent films. It's really hard to gather my attention on it.
That's fair.
And it's strictly my brain. It's not like it's a bad movie or anything. But I mean, regardless of that fact, luckily for me, again, that it was short enough for me to hold my attention to. But like it had so much there that just for the time alone that it was created deserves some praise itself.
Yes. So yeah, I think this is a film where the style of it absolutely precedes the story itself. Like it is a undisputable style over substance in a way. That's not to say that the story's not there, but like the way it's shot is beautiful and remarkable. It has all these really creative sets with like different shades of painting on it. It's got these characters that are easily to spot out, and it's got all those angles that the German expressionist movement is really known for. All these sharp, rigid angles that aren't really natural, even for architecture, where things tend to try to be clean cut and everything. This is
everything's wangly
dangly, jagged and imperfect, and it is definitely just something that stands out above the story. And the thing that I find most intriguing about this is that this was released in 1920. Obviously, that's between World War I and World War II. The writers, Karl Mayer and Hans Janowitz, made this as kind of an allegory for how the Germans' need for oppressive leadership kind of forced them into World War I, and they tried to write it as a cautionary tale, which we all know that the masses in Germany did not get or understand. And it kind of had the reverse effect where, it kind of added this anxiety about people, and people kind of found the comfort in oppressive leadership, unfortunately, which is kind of, that's not to say that this movie is the reason World War II and Hitler happened, but
could have fooled me.
But it had the opposite effect. Historians have examined this movie and people's reaction to it, and it kind of had the opposite effect of what Karl Mayer and Hans Janowitz intended. And that's not to say that it's not a film that is, Nazi propaganda or anything. Of course, it's just the meaning of the film was lost on so many people. But I think it's still holds up as like a great cautionary tale, in my opinion. With the Dr. Caligari character played by Werner Krauss being the personification of like oppression and a controlling dictator in a way. And it's just a really interesting film. This is a movie that I would love. Like, if I ever became like a big director, I would love to try to remake it in a way.
I feel like it would still work with the silent like film for sure.
Yeah, or like minimal dialogue at the very least.
It's crazy how much this movie inspired so many other things, because watching this you see the Shutter Islands, you see all the Tim Burton, and you see so many other things that you've seen from.
Are you talking about the twist for Shutter Island?
Yeah,
I could definitely see that.
Like the patient really being psychotic, and it's all just in his brain stems.
Yeah,
and then obviously with Tim Burton's style of German expressionism, like you said, it's really cool to see how much this has inspired so many other films in its future. It's really cool.
It is. Kind of going back to this trying to be like anti-Nazi propaganda. A lot of these actors and filmmakers like fled Germany during World War II. Obviously, Conrad Veidt came over to America, I believe, and acted in a bunch of American films. He was in Casablanca, The Man Who Laughs, which is the inspiration for Joker. And it's just interesting to see like what they did in Germany before fleeing over. But I think it's definitely the kind of film that if you don't like silent films, you're probably not going to like this. But I think it's also important to see how far film has come. If you're like, obviously, if you're a casual moviegoer, you're not going to care. But if you're a big film buff, even if you don't like silent films, I do think it's important to see where certain styles and inspirations came from. German expressionism was a huge thing, like with Nosferatu. Metropolis, and Vampire. There's just so many great German silent films that inspired American filmmakers, mainly because they all came over during World War II to flee the Nazis.
Yeah.
But, they did inspire American filmmakers to some extent. And it's just really cool to see the origins of a lot of styles and techniques we have today.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, with this being so short, it's really hard to say so much.
Yeah. How long was the version that you watched?
It was a little above an hour.
So, like, you had the hour and 7-minute version?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, yeah. The version I have on Blu-ray is an hour and 17 minutes. So it's like 10 minutes longer. This is another one of those films. A big thing about film back then is that no one saw the longevity of specific films.
Yeah.
So a lot of films were like actively destroyed back then just to save room and storage. And this was one that was considered lost for a very long time. I'm not exactly sure where or when they found it, but that's kind of why there's so many different versions. Like you saw an hour and 17-minute versions. You saw an hour 7 minutes, and I saw an hour 17. And that's because so many of the reels went missing, and there's these coalitions, these companies that actively go out and like look in people's collections to see if there are extra reels that are missing, like private collections, not public collections. So this is one that was like lost for a long time, and then they found a reel, and then they found another reel, and then they found another reel, and just slowly over time built the film back together. That happened a lot with a lot of German expressionist films, because a lot of them were anti-fascist back in those days, and the Nazi Party tried to have a lot of them destroyed. So a lot of them are found in like South American countries. I know Metropolis, I think a lot of it was found in Argentina, which is ironic because that's where a lot of Nazis fled, but Metropolis is a very anti-fascist film. And so is this.
Yeah, Metropolis is another one that I have to watch out for too. Cause
that is that's a
longer movie though, for sure.
It's fantastic. It's another one of my favorite films.
Yeah.
But like, if you're gonna struggle watching it, definitely plan to watch it over like 2 or 3 viewing sessions.
Yeah, sittings. Yeah.
But yeah, I have that on Blu-ray if you ever want to borrow. By the way,
I might have to sit with you 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just the thing that I love about silent films so much. Obviously, I love the films themselves, but with how spoiled we are today, they're not really amazing. They're impressive because they did all the stuff they do without computers, and they were the pioneers for discovering these things, like your Georges Méliès and Fritz Lang and F.W. Murnau. They were all like the pioneers for this, and it's just really cool. This is where the history geek in me comes out, is that it's not just a film thing for me, it's a history thing. You see all these people who are undoubtedly dead. If there's one alive, it's because they were like a baby in the background or something.
Yeah.
But like all of the main players in these films are dead, and it's just it's literally life from back then captured and preserved in a way. It's a time capsule source, and I know that's probably like making me sound pretentious, or it's like talking up the importance of film or everything. But like it's just to know that it's a film like this, or like Trip to the Moon by Georges Méliès, which came out in 1902 and is now 119 years old. That's the Trip to the Moon, not Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is 101 years old, which is pretty cool. But just that we've reached the century mark for film is just incredible to me, and it's come so far in such a quick amount of time.
A very, very fast amount of time.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know. I get transfixed on silent films because of that. I know they're not everyone's cup of tea, and I completely understand that. But
it's also crazy to think about going from like this to just a Trip to the Moon to anything made by Michael Bay.
Yeah, yeah. Michael Bay's. I'm going to look up when Michael Bay's first film was. But yeah, I mean,
early 90s, you would assume, right? Late 80s.
late 80s, early 90s, probably. Yeah. So, like, they went. We're just going to do strictly directing. They went from, having to make wooden set pieces with smart cuts and everything. I'm not going to count any of his shorts because those are ridiculous and they're mostly Victoria's Secret commercials. Jesus Christ! The Island was not. The Rock, is that his first?
The
film?
Rock might have been his first.
Oh yeah. So it's looking like The Rock in '96. So for the trip to the moon, that is 94 years to go from having to use quick cuts and smoke and shooting in greenhouses to shutting down entire streets in San Francisco and having a trolley crash on it.
Yep.
Just that in the grand scheme of things, it's an extremely short amount of time to become so far in a single medium. So yeah, it's remarkable, and it's just I love being able to look back and see where things came from and see like how people without computers, because movies have become more boring to see how they were made. With Mandalorian, it kind of made it a little more interesting because they don't use green screen; they use that like rear projection type thing. I forget what the actual name for it is. It's not rear projection, but it's like the virtual.
It's like real. It's not real time, but
real time and like,
that.
It's able to move with the camera and everything. But like for the longest time, computers was the answer for how did that.
Yeah, there's also so many movies being made that they're all kind of just looking the same with how they're being made too.
Yeah, and just to look back at these times and just be like, oh, how did they do that? And it's just it's cool to me. And I know I'm nerding out here. But,
absolutely, you nerd.
But yeah, I don't have too much to say about this. I love this movie. I don't expect many people, especially if you're not a huge film buff, to love it as much as I do. But I think it's an important film for film buffs and filmmakers to watch, at the very least, watch one time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can jump right into it if you want to.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's clear for me, so I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. It's definitely a shelf boy for me. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it is one of the most important films in film history, in my opinion. And I think that it is well deserving of the KFR shelf.
I think that I'm also going to say the same. I think just even if you're just trying to step a little foot in, a little toenail, maybe, if you will, into the pool of silent films and just see what like inspired so many of the films we've seen today, I think this is obviously going to be the one you want to see, especially since it's only, hour to hour and 20 minutes long, depending on what version you see, obviously.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to pay attention to for that long. And I think you'll be able to do it, and it's good. It's not like it's bad because of that.
Definitely.
It's just people with ADD sometimes,
So I'm going to just say one more thing about this. I don't know if you picked up on this, and I don't know if it was just like how men acted back then in Germany. But to me, watching it again, I definitely felt some, a little bit of love between Francis and Alan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I were to ever remake this, or anyone were ever to remake this, it'd be cool if they were like
you'd make
lovers.
them gay, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I would, because
absolutely
they definitely
and that's
love
a whole
each other.
Other reason for him to kill the guy.
Yeah, they love each other more than they love Jane.
Mm-hmm.
At least visually, they love each other. So I think it'd be interesting. Jane is still in the conversation because they have to hide their love for each other.
Yeah,
but to me, it's a lot more interesting story.
Or maybe like just one of them is
if they're lovers.
And then
even that too. But I think I didn't notice that the first time. Maybe it's because it's Pride Month right now, but I
did notice also in this that they all had makeup on, like dark around the eyes makeup, like mascara and everything. And then once the like dream sequence, like out of the psychotic mind got out of it, no one was wearing. Everybody was normal pretty much. So like it was.
I didn't even pick up on that. That's cool.
Really, because you notice like everybody's wearing like dark eyeshadow or mascara or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, like almost nobody seems to be wearing any of that.
That's really cool.
So I noticed that. So it's like, it's nice to pick up. Like, see, you didn't even notice that. You might notice that next time, or I might be completely lying to you. Who knows?
I might notice it next time. Who knows? But yeah, that is the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. It does make it onto the shelf with the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden. Glenn, it's time for plugs. Yes. I know you just picked something.
I usually do now.
You go ahead.
But here we go. Obviously, we talked about the Bo Burnham special that's on Netflix. I think it is probably one of the most hilarious specials that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Bo Burnham did it all from the inside of his home during all of quarantine. So I think it deserves a watchy poo. I don't know who all out there's into Bo Burnham, but this is definitely one of his best things that he's ever done so far. Definitely. And I can't wait to see what he does in the future, even if it's just to watch his movies just that he makes. I'm excited.
Absolutely.
So go ahead and give that a watch. Bo Burnham Inside on Netflix.
I can attest that it is wonderful, and you should check it out.
You know, I've learned something over this last year, which is pretty funny. I've learned that real-world, human-to-human tactile contact will kill you, and that all human interaction, whether it be social, political, spiritual, sexual, or interpersonal, should be contained in the much more safe, much more real interior digital space. That the outside world, the non-digital world, is merely a theatrical space in which one stages and records content for the much more real, much more vital digital space. And is it just me, or do pirates need to take a little bit better care of their fucking maps?
My plug for this week, everyone's going to think I'm obsessed now. It's because I am a little bit. Eurovision just happened. Everyone knows I've been rooting for Iceland in Eurovision. They got 4th place, which is still pretty good, especially since they were not able to perform live because one of them was tested positive for COVID. So they got 4th place without playing live, which is incredible.
That is incredible.
But when they came back to Iceland, they all had to isolate separately just to make sure that they didn't have it. And Daði Freyr, who is the lead of Daði Freyr og Gagnamagneth, he and his wife made a music video while they were in isolation for one of his songs. And it might be the weirdest fucking thing you guys will watch this week. You guys might watch a lot of like weird shit, but this is a weird fucking music video. But it's hilarious at the same time. And it's the music video for his song Somebody Else Now. It's a banger of a song as usual with Daði, and he making it in isolation with a green screen. He made himself like ride a Star Wars looking creature that is made completely out of his head and hands.
Nice.
It's really weird. Glenn, I sent it to you. I'm a little disappointed that you didn't watch it yet, but
you did?
I did send it to you.
I had no idea.
It's really weird, but everything in it is created, other than the background, is created from his hands or his head.
I'm bad at social media.
You are bad at social media, but I still love you. So that is the music video for Daði Freyr, Somebody Else Now, and that is on his YouTube channel, Daði Freyr.
All right.
And that brings us to our assignment for next week. It is my turn to pick, but am I really going to pick, or am I going to make Glenn pick?
I wouldn't mind either way.
So, Glenn, here I'm going to give you one question, and your answer will determine what we watch. Subtitles or no subtitles?
When's the last time we did just watch a silent film?
We did, yes.
When's the last time we watched a subtitled film? That like was
a foreign film.
That was probably the Chilean one, right?
Possibly. Let me just look at our Instagram real quick.
Or the what was the name of that one? The Chinese one that you recently just did.
The Assassin. Yeah, The Assassin was the last one, which was on May 17th.
No.
No subtitles?
No.
Okay. So we are going to watch a film that is on the Criterion Channel. So those of you who do not have Criterion Channel, get on that. It's great.
Should have been on it already, you losers.
And it is a film that the Coen brothers remade in 2005 or somewhere around there. I don't know if it was exactly 2005. It was early 2000s, called The Lady Killers.
You know what's funny? I've been meaning to rewatch this because I loved it when I watched it when it came out.
Are you talking about the original that we are watching or the Coen brothers one?
I'm talking about the Coen brothers one, so I might do a back-to-back, to be honest with you.
Oh, I will too, because I think the Coen brothers Lady Killers is a criminally underrated film.
Yeah.
But because it's got such bad reviews, but it's so fucking funny. Mm-hmm. But yes, so The Lady Killers 1955 version. Five oddball criminals planning Five oddball criminals planning a bank robbery rent rooms on a cul-de-sac from an octogenarian widow under the pretext that they are classical musicians. The Coen brothers stayed pretty close to that. It is directed by Alexander McKendrick. That's a name. It is written by William Rose and stars Alec Guinness, Obi-Wan Kenobi for those of you who know him as that. Cecil Parker, Herbert Lom, and Peter Sellers. Good old Peter Sellers.
Oh, boy.
Yes. And it is, again, like I said, on the Criterion Channel. If you want, we'll probably talk about it. So if you want to watch the Coen Brothers one as well, let me see if that's streaming anywhere. I have it on Blu-ray.
It is on Prime.
It is? Okay.
It is on Prime, yep.
Okay, so, well, that's the 1955 version. That's on... Oh, that's not Prime. You have to pay for that.
What?
What year? I don't know. Stop listening to me.
So The Lady Killers with Tom Hanks is on Prime.
Okay, my bad. So
The Lady Killers in 55 is on Criterion.
Yes, my bad.
And we are watching the Criterion.
Yes. So, The Lady Killers 1955 on Criterion, but if you also want to watch this Coen Brothers movie, because we will reference it heavily, that is on Amazon Prime.
Alec Guinness triumphantly outdoes his laughter-loaded leadership of the Lavender Hill Mob as he involves his gruesome gang of lady killers in the season's most uproarious escapade.
That is our assignment for next week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. As always, you can check out our website, www.keystonefilmreview.com. On Instagram, we're Keystone_film_review. Twitter, Keystone_film. Facebook, Keystone Film Review. YouTube, Keystone Film Review. And on Letterboxd, I am Mike, KFR.
Insert title card. And I am Glenn, KFR.
Insert title card. And that will do it until next week when we kill some old ladies, or one old lady. Or do we kill her at all? That's the real question.
Straight murder or not? That is the question.
Yes. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.